Okay, let's go on ahead and get started. And we will start tonight's session like we start all of our Sister Circle sessions with our chime. Thank you all for taking the time to join us this evening for tonight's dialogue on diversity. We've been doing this series for a couple months now, and they are scheduled bi-weekly. So please watch the UT News for articles with the link information so that you can join us for our next dialogue on diversity on the evening of August 20th at 5:30 again. But for tonight, tonight's title is Sister Circle, Resistance and Resilience Then and Now. My name is Malika Bell, and I am currently the Program Manager for the Office of Diversity and Inclusion here at the University of Toledo. I just want to briefly cover this community of care statement. I'm sure we all don't need to be reminded, but just in case, as a participant in this roundtable, we ask you to be respectful of your peers' thoughts and opinions. The intent of this session is not to be confrontational or argumentative with one another, but to be a space where you Toledo community members can be their authentic selves and share their thoughts and feelings within a civil manner. So for an overview of tonight's session, first we will have a moment of respect, which I will guide you through. I will give you a little bit of background on our Sister Circle group and meetings. I will then introduce our panelists for the evening. They will have a dialogue, a Sister Circle discussion. Throughout our evening, if you think of questions, please don't hesitate to put them in the Q&A section. You can put those in at any time. However, we will have a Q&A section at the end of the Sister Circle discussion. We will then wrap up with our power thought and our chime to get out of tonight's discussion. So again, thank you all for being here. I'd like to take a moment to respect Black women in our past. For those Black women who've given their lives for racial justice, for Black women who have had their lives taken, for Black women who have stood up, sat down, walked, and sacrificed for all of us. Just a moment of respect. Thank you. So Sister Circle started soon after we were all sent home to work remotely. I found myself in those first couple weeks missing the connection that we have with each other on this campus. As we see each other in the halls and we see each other passing outside, walking around campus, and I truly was missing everyone. And so I thought that it might be a good idea if we created a group where women of color could get together weekly, be our authentic selves, and share with one another and bond with one another. We have been meeting now for several months, and I think I can safely speak for at least many of us that we truly look forward to that time when we can get together and connect with one another. And so you will find in this evening's discussion many of our Sister Circle routines, including the chime, and we'll get to one in a little while, as well as ending and wrapping up with a power thought. So we will do that as well tonight. We've been doing these dialogues on diversity now for a couple months as well. And Michelle Solis and I have been, Dr. Solis and I have been working very hard to make sure that we are covering lots of different groups on our campus in these dialogues. It was brought to our attention that we failed to have one that focused on Black women. And my initial thought was that's because we're tired. But then after I brought it to the Sister Circle and asked their opinions, there were several who were interested in participating, and we have them with us here tonight. Our first panelist is Dean Charlene D. Gilbert. She is Dean of UToledo's College of Arts and Letters. Dean Gilbert has been a leader in higher education for more than 20 years. She began her career as a faculty member and over the years has served in a variety of higher education leadership positions. She became the Dean of the University of Toledo's College of Arts and Letters on July 10, 2017. During her first year as Dean, Gilbert led the college through a college-level strategic planning process that identified the following 5 key values as the foundation for achieving strategic success during the next 5 years: integrity, excellence, diversity, engagement, and innovation. Dean Gilbert is deeply committed to building the College of Arts and Letters into one of the finest liberal arts colleges housed in a public university in the country. Gilbert believes that creating a supportive and engaging academic environment is essential to academic success. During her tenure as dean, the college established a new scholars program designed to create an intellectual community for students who are highly engaged in terms of their academic achievements, commitment to service and/or leadership. In addition to co-curricular activities, Gilbert has prioritized scholarship support for students in need. Under her leadership, the college has created the Strategic Scholarship Initiative, designed to support students in academic good standing who need a small amount of financial assistance to stay on track to graduation. Prior to this position, she had been at the University of Toledo as a full professor and chair in the Department of Women's and Gender Studies, and the founding director of the School of Interdisciplinary Studies. In addition to serving as the Dean of the University of Toledo's College of Arts and Letters, Gilbert is also a tenured full professor in the Department of Theater and Film. For the past 20 years, Dean Gilbert has been an independent documentary filmmaker, teacher, and scholar. She has been a national producer for public television and has produced 2 award-winning feature documentaries and several short nonfiction films. Dean Gilbert is the recipient of several awards and fellowships, including the Rockefeller Media Arts Fellowship, Harvard University's Bunting Fellowship, the Kellogg National Leadership Fellowship Award, and the American Council on Education Fellowship. Dean Gilbert has her bachelor's degree from Yale University and her master's of fine arts degree from Temple University. Born in Montezuma, Georgia, and raised in 7 different states, Dean Gilbert now calls Toledo her hometown. She has raised her 2 daughters here, and 5 years ago, her mother moved from Georgia to join the family here in Toledo as well. She is a walleye fan, kayaker, and can be found taking advantage of the magnificent Toledo Farmers Market on Saturday mornings throughout the summer. Thank you, Dean Gilbert. Would you please take part in one of our Sister Circle, one of the things that we do every week, and tell us your name. If you could also please share with the audience why you chose to be in this space tonight, and then end with just the statement, "I am present."
Can you say my 3 questions again? Sorry.
No worries.
And I should have.
Just if you could just say hello and your name and how you'd like the audience to refer to you. Tell us why you chose to be in this space this evening, and just the statement, "I am present."
Okay. My name is Charlene Gilbert, and you can address me as Charlene. I often tell my students who ask me that question sometimes that, you know, that if we're going to go by formal titles, then I would have to address them by like Mr. Smith or Miss Jones. And since that's not going to happen, then they can just call me Charlene. You know, my preference would be to be called Queen of the World, but since that's not an option, then Charlene is absolutely fine. As for why I chose to be here tonight, because I draw strength and comfort and healing whenever I'm in the company of my sisters. And so any opportunity to join a group of women together to talk about kind of how we're navigating this particular historic moment, I thought could only be a positive thing, and it was exciting. I'm so glad that you've been doing this work, Malika. I feel like that is a blessing to this community, and I'm just really honored that you guys created space and invited me to join you to be here tonight, because again, I feel like I will be enriched by this experience as well. And I am present.
Thank you very much. Our second panelist is Dr. Monica Holliday Goodman. She is the Associate Dean for Student Affairs and Diversity and Inclusion at the University of Toledo's College of Pharmacy and Pharmaceutical Sciences. She received both a BS in Pharmacy and a PhD in Pharmaceutical Sciences from the former Northeast Louisiana University, presently the University of Louisiana at Monroe. Dr. Holliday Goodman's teaching and research focus on sociocultural, behavioral, and administrative aspects of pharmacy practice and healthcare in general. Her research passion is the elimination of health disparities and barriers to care for underserved patients. She has been an invited speaker to numerous academic and professional audiences. Dr. Holliday Goodman is actively involved in service to the University of Toledo and the surrounding community. At the university, she is committed to increasing the enrollment and retention of underrepresented minority students in the health professions programs. In the community, she serves as health education outreach coordinator for St. Martin de Porres Catholic Parish. She is also a member of the Toledo chapter of the Links Incorporated, where she is actively involved in the health and human services facet. Dr. Holliday Goodman is grateful to share a vibrant life in Toledo, Ohio, with supportive husband Patrick and 3 uniquely wonderful children, Larkin, Faith, and Gideon. Dr. Holliday Goodman, would you please share with our audience how you would like to be referred to, why you chose to be in this space this evening, and your statement of presence?
Good evening, everyone. I am Monica Holliday Goodman. Please feel free to call me Monica. I am in this space because I am not only my sister's keeper, but I am my sister. Whatever affects her affects me. And so anything that I can do to make the lives of my fellow sisters better, I am willing and just enthused to do, and I am present.
Thank you. And last but certainly not least is my friend Tanola Mayfield Guerrero. Tanola is an activist, artist, mother, feminist scholar, and disability rights advocate. She holds a master's in sociology from the University of Toledo, an MA in philosophy from the University of Toledo, and a master's of business administration from the Ohio State University, and is completing her doctorate degree in leadership at Bowling Green State University. Tanola, could you please share with the audience how you would like to be referred to, why you chose to be in this space this evening, and your statement of presence?
I think she just dropped off.
Okay, it appears we're having a little bit of technical difficulty. So I think until we're able to get Tanola back on, Dean Gilbert and Dr. Holiday Goodman. That means you're going to have to talk enough for all of us.
We can do that.
Mhm.
Okay.
Glad to do so.
Okay. So as we have done in Sister Circle, I would like for each of us to finish the statement, I am the daughter of. And we've done this before for our audience members. We're asking each member to choose an individual from the past or present who has influenced their lives greatly, and who they admire and perhaps emulate in their movements through the world. So to fill some space, I will share who I am the daughter of. I am the daughter of my mother, of course, Nema Bell, who is also a link with Dr. Holiday Goodman. But I am also the daughter of,
I didn't realize that.
yes, I am also the daughter of Angela Davis.
Yeah.
Angela Davis, for those of you who do not know, is a political activist, philosopher, academic, and author. And I had the pleasure of meeting her when she came to campus. Not only did I get to meet her, but I also got to sit down for dinner with her with only like 4 other people. So I feel truly blessed to have met her, and I am the daughter of Angela Davis. Dr. Holiday Goodman?
Okay. I have so many women that I admire. I would have to say I am, first of all, the daughter of Blanche Larkin, my mom, who is no longer with us, but was an amazing woman, and I miss her dearly. But I am also the daughter of poet, artist, and activist Maya Angelou. I so greatly admire her. And there are several reasons that I feel as though I am her daughter. I don't know if you all have had a chance to read a number of her writings, but she has one of her latest books, I think, was called Mom and Me and Mom. It's a book that talks about the relationship that she had with her mother. And since I had recently lost my mother when I read it, I mean, it was just such a book that brought me just so much joy, and even in some degree, a level of closure to the relationship that I had with my mother too. So I strongly recommend it. But also when I think about her as my sort of like my mother in spirit, she has taught me to rise like the dust when I am knocked down. She has taught me to sing my song when others try to put me in a cage. Mm-hmm. She has taught me that I and my sisters are phenomenal women. And she has taught me that courage is the most important virtue, for without courage, I cannot practice the other virtues consistently. So that is why I am the daughter of Maya Angelou.
Thank you for sharing. And Dean Gilbert, who are you the daughter of?
And my mother is alive with us here in Toledo, so that's a blessing. She was raised in Georgia, in the Deep South, in the heyday, the heights of apartheid in the Southern United States. And she is one of the bravest, most courageous, fiercest women I've ever known. And I learned so much wisdom from her. And I continue to every day. I continue. If I'm having a problem at work, I talk to Earlene about it. And she can and she'll sort it all out for me and tell me exactly what I need to do. So I feel very blessed and fortunate to have her as my mother and always in my corner. There's an expression my father used to say, he says, if I'm in a fight with a bear, you help the bear. Because he's so young. But if I'm in a fight and I got Earlene on my side, then watch out, everybody, because she is a force to be reckoned with. My other mother, I talk about sometimes my biological mother, my spiritual mother. My spiritual mother is definitely Barbara Neely. She is a writer. She passed away, unfortunately, sadly. She passed away this year in early March, and it was heartbreaking. I haven't heard that much in a long time, and I hope that. But I appreciate the opportunity to tell people about her if they don't already know about her. She's a writer, so many people know her for her series Blanche on the Lam, Blanche Among the Talented Tenth. It's a mystery series featuring an African American woman who works as a domestic, but is also like a sleuth and she's solving mysteries. But her novels are packed with commentary on race and class, and color and privilege. And she does this just amazing job of sort of taking these narratives that seem very straightforward, but weaving these lessons about life and power into them, and social activism and social justice. When she was writing, I knew her when she was writing the first novel before it got published. And at that time, she was working as the director of a group called Women for Economic Justice, which is based in Boston. She was one of the leading feminists in Boston. She was brilliant. She had a clear, sharp political analysis, was rigorous, was courageous, and demanded integrity and courage from any African American claiming to speak on behalf of the African American community. She did not suffer fools. She did not suffer people whose sole aspiration was to accumulate wealth for themselves. She would call them out. I watched her like take sexist men down on the regular, and I'd be sitting there going, and she would be like, now we're ready to start the meeting. I think the biggest lesson I learned from her was it is never too late. It is never too late. Sometimes you're in a situation and people will say something to you that's offensive, and sometimes we're shocked, right? We're just like taken aback. You're like, oh my God. And you get home and you're still like thinking about it and working about it. And I remember she said to me, Charlene, it is never too late. Go back tomorrow. And I took that advice. So when I was, my first daughter was born, I was a junior colleague, a junior faculty member, and Monica may appreciate this. And a senior colleague came to me and said, oh, congratulations on your daughter. So I just don't know how you're going to get tenure now that you have a child. So I was just flabbergasted, right? And I'm like, sleep deprived, got this baby. And I'm like, so my mind wasn't going as, and I was just, and I went home and I called Barbara and I told her, I said, I can't believe he said that. And I wish I said this and this and this in the moment. Never too late, say it tomorrow. Next day I saw him. Matter of fact, I think I went looking for him. Next day I saw him and he said something to me and I said, you know what? We'll just say that was what I found is that being a mom makes me extremely efficient and productive. I don't really have time for a lot of this chit chat in the middle of the hallway because I'm busy getting my work done and published and doing all the things I need to do. So I have always kept that close to my heart. It is never too late to say what you need to say, and it's better to leave it on the table for someone else to lose sleep over than for you to lose sleep. But mainly she taught me integrity and sharp race and class analysis for what's going on in the world, and how to be, so I'm a feminist who is informed by both a deep commitment to the African American experience and a deep commitment to the principles of feminism and social justice. I got all that from her. And I hope if you haven't read it, if you don't know who she is and you haven't read her book, please read any one of the Blanche books. And trust me, there are lessons embedded in that story, deep and that will serve you well.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. And I see that Tanola has joined us. So let's get you caught back up, Tanola. First,
excellent. Hello, everyone. Thank you.
First, I'm asking for your statement of presence.
I'm Tanola Mayfield Guerrero, and I am here, finally.
Thank you. And then if you could please share with our audience why you chose to be in this space, number one, and number two, who are you the daughter of?
Excellent. So I was able to hear some of the previous speakers answer this question, and I have to say that a lot of what they've already said really resonated with the reasons as to why I wanted to be here and why I felt that I needed to be a part of this. Dialogue and the ability to be with others and to work things out, I think is extremely important. It moves us forward in a way that I think is completely empowering. It also helps us to share and to realize that especially we are not alone in this. So the act of being together, of talking, of sharing really lifts us up in a way that I think is so important, especially now as we are continuously bombarded with things that press us down, that weigh on us, that suck away our life presence. So here is an event, here is an opportunity to not only get some of that back, but come away feeling empowered, feeling refreshed, feeling a sense of connection that is so desperately needed right now. So that's one of the reasons that I wanted to be here tonight. And I'm so honored to be in the presence of such amazing women and to be able to share in that journey with you all. So I'm so grateful. Thank you so much for inviting me. I am the daughter of Harriet Tubman. Harriet Tubman is someone who I feel calls to us presently, calls from the past, tells us to not be afraid, to look, to see. She and her life was beautiful, a river, something that paves the way, that allows us to say, I am paving the way for others. I am here and I am hoping to bring you home. So for me, that's one of the women I would say I am the daughter of for sure, because that journey and that dedication and that resilience is so important. It was so alive in her story, and I feel like it's alive in me as well.
Thank you very much for sharing, all of you. And y'all know I like to cry. I can't help myself. And there's no shame in my tears. Okay, so right now in this country, I've said to several people, I feel like we're in the twilight zone right now. Everything that is happening and all of it, it piled upon the next thing, and it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
All of the things that are happening right now, in our world and in our country and in our county. Could you all share with me what it means to be surviving for you? What does survival look like for you? And how are you surviving right now? Dean Gilbert, would you share first?
Yeah. So it has been a lot. The last 4 months, we've been hit by a pandemic, an international pandemic, like nothing we've seen before. We are in the worst recession, nearly a depression. We have 40 million plus people unemployed, more than we had employed during the Depression. We had social justice and upheaval, uprisings in the streets, unlike anything we've seen before. And yeah, that is a lot. And so I think at different points, it has felt overwhelming. Like I felt like and I'm sure all of us have been riding this wave. And I was just saying to someone else, that to find yourself feeling sad and overwhelmed or anxious during this time, like that would be normal. Like don't feel like you need to fix that. Like those are healthy. Like to find yourself crying, like those are all normal, healthy things that we should be doing, because that actually is how we take care of ourselves. So I do think that allowing yourself the space to feel the real feelings is super important. I've been trying to do that, like trying to not run from it, but to sit with it. And so I've been doing that. And then I try to remember the things that have helped me through difficult times in the past and to go to those things. So I think people who have been, if you have been present in your own life and maybe you journal, maybe you have other ways of or maybe you have a close friend that reminds you. I've been trying to remember kind of what are the things that have sustained me. And I think about sustaining sustenance maybe more is the word I think about a little bit. But so walking, I took a long walk, like an hour and a half walk with an old friend a couple of weeks ago, and it was so good for my soul just to be outside. We social distance. We had our masks. If we took our mask off, then we were like 9 feet apart, but we were like talking to each other the whole time, and that felt really, really good. Talking and connecting with my friends in these kind of venues, using WebEx to do that. Connecting. So I don't know. Maybe am I the only one, but maybe not. But talking to my sister friends, like my sisters, they lift me up, and like I just find that's the thing that has helped me get through the toughest times of my life, is being able to pick up the phone, and we'll be on the phone for 2 hours or 3 hours, and just being able to do that means a lot. Getting sleep. I wasn't getting a lot of sleep in the first month of this whole thing. And then I really tried to get intentful and about making sure I was getting rest, not just sleep, but actual rest. I had a nightmare about a social distance nightmare. I showed up for an event, and to introduce a speaker, and I looked out, and there were like 100 people, and they were all sitting next to each other. And I was like, nobody's social distancing. And I backed myself into a corner trying to get away from them. And then I was like, okay, that's not rest. When you're having nightmares on social distance. Rest. So I had to kind of like go back and think about like, what do I do before I go to sleep? I'm getting some rest. And I think being intentful about finding joy, like whatever that looks like, even small things. So like one of the things, I know this is gonna sound odd. I wish I had more like, gravitas, Dean-like things to say, but okay, here it is. The one, I like ice cream cones, like the kind vanilla ice cream dipped in hot fudge. I have been eating those at will since we went to, and I just like, you know what? This brings me joy. And so I keep my refrigerator pretty much stocked with these ice cream cones. They remind me of my childhood, and Eggo waffles. I don't recommend processed food. I know how to make waffles from scratch, but something about an Eggo waffle reminds me of when I was a kid. So I do that. Fresh air, exercise, talking to my girlfriends, and finding whatever little joy. If there's something that brings me joy and it's healthy for my soul, then I let myself have that joy, and I don't spend a lot of time thinking about like, oh, am I gonna gain weight? I think about being healthy, and I think that I am that helps me survive this moment.
Thank you for sharing. And Dr. Monica.
Okay. I thought maybe I had muted myself.
No.
Well, I love this question because it reminds me that it's okay to be not okay. We have to acknowledge that, yes, we are going through an awful lot of things right now. If you looked at the pandemic or the social justice issues that we have related to systemic racism, or what's going on in politics, all of those alone would be enough to make you crazy. But this is, in my opinion, like a perfect storm of events that are testing us right now. And unless we dig way deep into whatever root system we have, we're going to be easily toppled over.
Yeah.
So I, at this point in time in my life, have depended on my, just those things that I rely on daily and have for just as long as I can remember to get me through, and unashamedly so, such as my prayer life. I'm a very spiritual person. One of my favorite Bible verses is in 1 Thessalonians. It talks about being joyful always and praying continually. My life is a continual prayer. I wake up, the first person I speak to in the morning is my God. And all throughout the day, I'm praying for myself, for other people, for the world, for anybody that comes to my mind. And that has been so important to me. So not only prayer, but scripture study. This has been a time where, since I can't go anywhere and I can't do anything, I have just refocused on going into the Gospels. Started with John for some reason, started at the end, and now I'm into Matthew. So, but taking my time, not rushing through it just so I can say I read them all. I mean, scripture by scripture, what does this mean to me right now? What do you think Jesus really meant when he said that? That really sounds odd, you know? So just taking my time to really go through and try to understand and make some relevance to the world today in regard to what I'm learning. I also, and I don't remember whether it was last spring semester, I took a breathing meditation class at the University of Toledo. Fantastic class. There were only 2 people in there, so it was just like almost personal lessons for me and my other classmate. But I still use those skills that I learned there. Every morning I turn on my little Himalayan salt lamp and sit there with that warm glow, get into my meditation position and just breathe. And in my time, the time that I'm meditating, I tell myself, I am present, I am safe, and I am calm. And anytime throughout the day, when I start to feel agitated, I remind myself of that. In a sense, telling myself, you are okay. I know this virus is out there and I know we're all at risk, especially seems like people of color.
Yep.
But this moment in time, I am okay. I am breathing. I am well. I am not in the hospital. So let's just, settle it down a little bit.
Yeah.
So I do, the breathing meditation to sort of help me to start my day on a good note. But I also have what I call my happiness toolkit that I draw from time to time. So in it, I have a journal that I love to write in that actually has prompts. So I don't have to think about, well, what am I going to write today? It asks me questions and I'm, oh, that's a cool question. And I'll write about that. I love to color. My kids even know it. My daughter has a master's in fine arts also. And one of the best gifts she ever gave me was a huge coloring book and the very expensive color pencils. I don't know, Charlene, if you know about the Prismacolor, like $25 for a box of 10 or something.
Yeah.
Whoa, these things are awesome. So I've been using that. And I have also a little, guilty pleasure, Ghirardelli chocolate, dark chocolate squares. I keep a bag in the freezer and I oftentimes will get one almost every day unless I've had too many points. And for Weight Watchers folks out there, I think they're like 3 points, okay? 3 smart points each. So just a combination of things in addition to exercise, talking to my friends, helping others when I can, getting out there and truly making a difference in someone's life instead of sitting back and feeling sorry about the present state of things. Those are the types of things that have helped me. Oh, and just one more thing I wanted to mention too. We haven't been able to go on vacation. And one of the things that I realized that brings me a lot of peace and calm is looking forward to a trip and actually getting out there and doing things. So I give myself little mini vacations during the day. I will go and buy like the most expensive and most fragrant body wash or hand soap that I can find out there. Paying $5 for a bar of soap is a lot less than paying $500 for a couple nights in a hotel room. So I figure I'm okay. And so every time I wash my hands, it's like, oh, this is just so wonderful. So I'm just basically just indulging myself. These little everyday throughout the day indulgences has helped me to just get through all of it.
Thank you. And Tanola, how are you surviving? And what does survival look like for you?
That is a very interesting question. So already I feel a sense of gratitude because I have learned a few things today or been reminded of a few things. And let me tell you why. I came into COVID-19, I came into this pandemic grieving. Both of my grandparents died back to back, literally. We had the celebration of life for my grandfather on March 7th. And I remember sitting in my mother's kitchen reading her Sunday paper on March 8th. And I was looking at the newspaper and it was showing where this novel virus was hitting. And at that point, both Michigan and Ohio, this was March 8th, had not had any confirmed cases.
Yeah.
I was flying out of Tennessee the following day, and I remember landing in Detroit, and Detroit Airport is usually a bustling airport. It's an international airport, and it was literally a ghost town. And it was so strange because I didn't have a mask, but a lot of other people were wearing masks. And it was just such a surreal experience. And I received a phone call 3 days later from my mother letting me know that my grandmother had suffered a massive heart attack and had passed away. We still have not had her celebration of life because they're having huge spikes of COVID all over, but especially here and in Tennessee. And so it's not safe. I don't feel safe traveling. But I came into this pandemic with a heavy heart. I really did. So when all of this stuff started happening, I was already tired, right? I was already emotionally exhausted. And for the past several months, and mind you, I don't want to sound like I'm complaining, because I agree with you, Dr. Monica. I'm safe and my family is safe and we're healthy so far. And so I feel weird by saying these few months have been so trying and so exhausting for me. I have been caregiver, I have been, teacher, I have been cafeteria cook, I have been cleanup person, I have been, you name it, I've been it. And it's been 24/7. There has not been a break. I don't even have, so I'm working from home. And again, I'm so thankful because I still have a job. So I don't want to sound like I'm complaining. But because I'm working from home, it means I have no escape. I have no break. So my office is downstairs and I work from home, and my children are around me. My husband's here. Everybody is here 24/7 because, like you all have been mentioning, there's nowhere to go. At this point in time, the best practice is to continue to social distance.
Yeah.
So I'm exhausted. So that question of how I'm surviving, I don't know. I'm treading water, is what I like to say. I'm not sinking, but the water gets pretty close, and it gets close pretty often. But in listening to everybody, I remember that, yes, the small things matter. The little things that I can do for myself really matter. That bubble bath that I'm going to take later on is really, really going to matter, right? When I tell myself, oh, you have this foot spa, you need to use more often. Why I'm not using it, I don't know. But you have all reminded me, yes, I need to use that more often, because I can't take care of anybody else adequately and sufficiently if I'm not at least taking minimal care of myself, right?
Yep.
But I think we forget that, because I don't know about you all, but I'm just the kind of person, I go. I get it done. And I seem to pride myself on that getting it done, but it's exhausting. And now that everything is heaped upon us, and it's really, really exhausting. So I'm surviving by, basically I just keep going, but I am going to make sure that I stop and celebrate the small things, that, like I said, I take care of myself and that I allow myself the art of doing nothing. I've been saying this in my head for several weeks now. I'm going to practice the art and the joy of doing nothing. And I've yet to do it, right? But I feel like it's about time that I do it, because I think that's extremely important, to remind myself to kind of sit, to breathe, right? To remind myself that I'm okay, and it's okay to feel overwhelmed, but not to live in that world, and just to give myself a moment to be still and to be calm. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so I want to remind our audience that the Q&A is there. If there are any thoughts or questions that are coming to your mind, anything you'd like for our panelists to discuss, please don't hesitate to put it into the Q&A. So for our next question, women, what, if anything, do you think is different currently regarding the press toward racial equity in the U.S.? Do you think anything's different right now? If so, what is it? And how are you processing what you're seeing? Anyone can go first.
I'll go.
Go ahead.
Well, I think the most obvious thing that appears to be different this time is that the number of people who are engaged in the effort or the the progress toward social justice and all of that has enlarged. I guess you see people of all races, of all backgrounds, of all cultures who are a part of this movement towards social justice, and that is quite different to me. You know, it's not only African Americans or Black people taking the lead on making sure that our needs and our experiences are noted. So that is one major thing that I see. What I fear, though, and what I am worried about is that once this issue, or once the George Floyd story becomes second news, not important anymore, that the momentum that we have started will start to slow down and eventually stop. And I sure hope that doesn't happen. I have to say, though, that I've really been impressed with the younger people who have taken part in this. I am just so impressed with them because, you know how it is, every generation looks at the next generation as just, oh my gosh, how are they like that? They just have no ability. How are they going to succeed after we leave? You think those kind of things. But I am just so impressed with these young leaders that I have seen come forth from this movement. And it looks to me as though we are in good hands in regard to leadership. We don't have maybe one major leader like we did when I was coming up in the 60s and 70s, but we have a number of people representing a number of organizations and a number of initiatives that I think are pressing for change. And I am hoping that, the world and the country takes note of that and realizes that we all have a part to play in eliminating systemic racism and in making this world a better place for everyone. So, this is not my personal agenda. I don't want things to just be better so I can sleep better at night. But I think when we keep one group down, it actually affects all of us. And I just hope that the world, and especially here in this country, where this major event took place, I hope we make note of that and start to realize that we are not alone in this. What affects one person affects another. You may not see it directly, but sooner or later, it is going to affect you as well.
Thank you. And Dean Gilbert?
I'm going to pass right now. Can I?
Okay, of course. Chinola?
Yeah, I was going to say that for me, and maybe this is me being a product of my time, but I feel like it's different now because I feel like that veil of civility that we once had has certainly been lifted. And so even though I'm really excited about the momentum that I see, I'm also deeply frightened by a lot of the sort of pushback. Now, there's always been pushback, don't get me wrong. I'm not naive in thinking that there's never been pushback when we've had other movements. But the fact that we have secret police now that are kind of a part of this whole operative of keeping people suppressed and of tapping down some of that momentum that we see, the fact that so many people are blatantly being really just awful, going into Walmart wearing swastika masks, right? I mean, that to me tells me that you're not even trying to be a civil person, or even going and storming the state houses and not wearing masks and demanding that, you have this right, that somehow being told that you need to wear a mask for the good of the community and of the world is somehow treading upon your individual rights as a person. So, while at the same time, I'm really excited about the momentum, I'm also frightened about what I'm seeing in humanity, and that I share a world with individuals that I don't even know what to say, right? I'm not even sure how to begin a dialogue with a person who behaves that way. So that's
Yeah.
what excites me is how do we move forward, knowing that we're all coexisting and yet we're so far apart with what we want and what it means to have a just world.
Yeah.
100% agree.
Yeah. I will say that I share your fears, Tanola, and your concerns, but I also think I share Monica's kind of appreciation for the leadership that we're seeing in this generation. And I feel like, I think about what it must have been like in 1954 to take to the streets. So, although it's scary and it's, what we're seeing in Portland and Seattle is scary, I think that we still are seeing this we're seeing movement forward. Like we've just seen a big step forward actually in the social movements that we just experienced this summer. And I feel like that they are doing some really smart things to take care of themselves. But I think that not having one leader is actually a really smart idea and is a way that they're protecting themselves, right? Not having something that can be pinned down, having a shared leadership model, having a broad-based movement, like those things actually protect them from the very things that you're talking about, Tanola, that are terrifying. So I think that that's going to continue to give the movement energy, and they're going to continue to be able to advance things and move things forward. And it makes me hopeful watching kind of how far we've come in just 3 months. And 4 months ago, nobody was talking about defunding the police. And now, people are learning what that really means at a rapid rate. So I'm inspired by the young people. I'm inspired by their courage. Not only to take to the streets to face down violence and hate, but to do so in the middle of a pandemic when a lot of us just want to hide in our homes and try and they literally have been putting their lives on the line to advance social justice in a way that I think is just amazing and humbling. And I think we need to continue to think about how we, from wherever we are, in whatever position we are in the world, that we continue to add support to them in this effort and to join with them. I think that everyone has something to do. We don't all have to do the same thing, but we all have something to do. So we need to make sure we're doing whatever our part is.
Right.
I agree. And, one of the pieces of dialogue that I've found really interesting has been this dialogue about the controlling of optics, because you'll find that ultimately, there's a way in which protesters have been posited as being violent, right? But then there are these other photographs where we can see that they're responding to something. So it's not like they're acting in a void, but they're being reactive to something. And so it's been a really interesting dialogue now about this idea of how it is that we perceive optics and who controls those messages. And I remember that somebody wrote recently, and actually a few of us have been talking about this. They were saying how maybe what we need to do is take a look at the way that the civil rights movement photographs have been done in the past, because in the past they're all black and white. And they're like, maybe if we colorize them, we can show and humanize it and give it more context, so people don't think that it was so long ago, and they can realize that ultimately this dialogue, this is a continuum, and it has not that long ago.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the same person was saying how when photographs of the Great Depression were colorized, that it resonated with people more. So just added such a layer of understanding and of sort of, I guess, just connection. And so again, I think that those kinds of conversation pieces are really interesting and extremely important to think about how it is that we are sort of moving things forward and how the way in which we document things are being perceived, those larger optics, those larger questions of the optics of it.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I wanted to, you made me think about something. I had a conversation with my 14-year-old daughter. She was upset with me because there was a caravan of cars going the wrong way down the one-way street that our street butts up against. And it was obviously some group that decided to get together and protest by driving down the street. So she wanted me to run and grab my stuff and get in the car and go join, right? And I'm like, no. First of all, I'm working from home, and Dr. McKether would not appreciate it.
Is that my Lego news?
But
All the way down the street. Wait, it's 2 o'clock.
But and so she said, well, you're not even doing anything, Mama. And I'm like, you now what she meant was I'm not doing anything toward racial justice. And so I tried to explain to her what I'm doing. And so it prompted me to write a poem entitled This Is How I Fight.
Oh, good.
Because I am fighting, and you saying that there are lots of different ways that we
Lots
can
of different
all be
ways.
involved.
Yes.
This is my way.
Yep. Absolutely.
And I say in all my trainings, I'm not trying to change the minds of everyone in this room. I'm trying to plant a seed in the minds of everyone in this room.
Yeah.
A seed that perhaps will take root and grow into something.
Right.
So really quickly, how are you fighting, Monica?
How am I fighting? I agree with, the statement that she made. I have felt like that also when they were having all of the protests and things. I was thinking, well, I'm not getting out there. Why am I not going to find a protest and all that? But then when I got to think about it, I think that, my life is a protest because I actually do everything that I can to make the experience of African Americans better in so many ways, whether that be through work and all of the committees that I serve on, whether that be through teaching about health disparities and cultural competence, whether that be by giving to charities and helping people who need some financial assistance. I am doing the work. I may not be out there with a sign and all of that. I feel like I'm a little too slow and maybe a little too old for that. I can't run fast enough if the, as we affectionately say, the popo comes.
We affectionately say that?
Sorry, guys.
Yeah, like I
don't know
was
why
Monica
it's
in my
offended.
mind running down the street.
Oh, yeah. I wouldn't get very far, but I can do those things that affect change within, my life and, have impact. I can support organizations. I can provide like food to food pantries and all kinds of things that you can do that's not out there in the middle of the streets with the sign. And God bless those people who can do it and who do it. God bless you and thank you for bringing attention to the things that we face. But I think that there are so many ways to impact change, and I think we need to become comfortable in doing those things in our own way, or we can easily become overwhelmed. This is not only for us as African Americans, but for people of all races, colors, creeds. You all can make a difference. You all can make an impact in whatever way is available to you.
Yeah.
Tanola, how are you fighting?
Yeah, I have to agree that I think there are multiple ways in which one can see themselves as fighting or being a part of this, being a change agent. For one thing, being just a civil human being, right? I mean, out in the world, I think really is meaningful. And I know that sounds cliche, this idea of, oh, well, saying please and thank you, but we often forget that when you go to the grocery store, that grocery store worker is putting their lives on the line to make sure that you can get whatever it is that you want to get. And so I always make sure to say thank you so much, be well, be safe, just to make sure that they know that I appreciate what they're doing, that they're not forgotten, that their efforts are not invisible. And so I think that that's one of the major ways that I feel like is important, that person knows that they are acknowledged and that they're appreciated, that their efforts are appreciated. Like Dr. Monica was saying, I make sure that I support organizations that are moving things forward in a variety of ways, whether that means donating money, whether that means donating supplies, whether that means, helping them to figure out organizational tactics. Again, there are a variety of ways to protest. I haven't physically been to any of the protests because I debated this, you know, I debated, do I want to take my children out to these protests? And I was fearful. I was fearful for their lives and their safety, not only because we have a pandemic, but I did not know how the police were going to respond. I didn't trust the police to respond appropriately. So, but I dialogued with them and I made sure to let them to know that it's really important that you understand what's going on, and how important it is to do these things. I also think that, you know, having signs in your yard to let people know that you support movements, that Black Lives Matter, that lives matter. And I mean, I feel like that's extremely important to say, I'm willing to put my sign out there and say, yes, in this house, this is what we subscribe to. Because I feel like that also inspires a neighborhood, right? And again, creates that dialogue between neighbors and between people. And so I think it's really important to do those kinds of things, to continue to help with the education process, right? To dialogue, to talk, to be honest, and to not be afraid to say, you know, I'm with you, I hear you, we have commonality, let's figure out ways to get there. So I think that becomes so important, especially now, where this idea of us being, you know, so different, this notion of difference becomes a weapon almost, and instead of a moment where we can further our understanding or deepening of us as beings together. So I think it's extremely important to really change the framing of ways in which we use and understand and dialogue about the notion of difference. So for me, that's really some of the ways that I feel I've been a part of this conversation, and I'm continuing to be a change agent in the world.
Wonderful. So Malika, are you going to read us the poem?
I don't have it with me. I'm sorry. I'll read it tomorrow morning in Sister Circle.
Okay. Okay. Waiting.
So you know what? I'm looking at the time. I got enthralled in our conversation and forgot that we had an audience until something popped up over in the periphery of my eyes. So we've got a couple questions, and we've got several people wondering, and let me go. What they're wondering is, and so let me get back to the questions here. We've got some questions that were on my list, actually, of things for us to discuss tonight. And so what we want to know is, what do you, as the Black woman that you are, who does not represent all Black women, what do you want from our non-Black allies? What is it you'd like to see? Some real steps.
I guess I would like to see everyone use their voice. I think that my answer to the question about how I'm fighting is that I try to make sure I'm using my voice in whatever space I am in. And I think that sometimes, you know, that's incredibly important. Our silence will not protect us. I don't think silence protects anybody, right? So, but I also think that often African-American women, and in a lot of these spaces that we travel, the weight of raising up issues, the weight of speaking truth to power, we carry that weight and we do a lot of that work. And it would be nice every now and then to be able to not have to do that work all the time, because we do it in every room that we go into. So I feel like if you're in a space and every single person in that space is the same race, or there's not a single person of color and whatever, you should be asking questions. Like, you know, because it you know, like, instead of waiting for a person of color to arrive to point it out, like, you're in those rooms that I'm not invited to, right? So if you're in those rooms that I'm not invited to, and you look around and all you see are, like, you know, there are no people of color, you should be asking, hey, what do you think's going on here? How did that happen? You know, like, because that, I think that I can't cover all those spaces. I do. So with the spaces that I am in, I'm like asking the hard questions. I'm trying to push things forward. I'm trying to push equity and justice forward. And that's a lot of work to do. And I do it because it's my obligation, right? Much is given, much is asked, and I'm all in. But I feel like there are other spaces that I'm not in. It's like, don't wait for me to get there. Like, if you're already there, use your voice, lift up your voice, ask those hard questions. And I think that sometimes there's a worry that people become targets. just remember that people of color, we're targets all the time. And we don't usually have a choice to opt in or out of being a target. We're a target. So I would say that's one thing you do. And then I think I haven't heard this so much in this space, like in the spaces I travel here in Toledo, but in some national dialogues I've been part of, there's been a lot of sort of allyship that looks like, I know I have privilege and I am your ally. And the first couple of times I heard that, I knew that something about it was bothering me. And I kept my brain kept working it through. And then finally I realized, like, just acknowledging your privilege is actually not enough. Like, it is not sufficient in the 21st century where we are now, after the uprisings that we're in this pandemic moment, just simply showing up and saying, I know that I have health care and you don't. And I acknowledge that's a privilege. Like, that's not helping anybody. So acknowledging your privilege is actually not doing me any work, not doing me any good. It's not doing, I need you to do more. I need people to do things like say, I would rather someone come to me and say, like, I was actually on a listserv in a group, and someone typed about how they own property in a community that has covenants in it that intentionally exclude Black people from being able to buy the land. And the person was sort of putting that out there as like, yeah, there's a lot of work to be done. I was like, what was that? Like, that's not this here. Let me model for you what would have been more helpful. Dear group, I just discovered that I own property and it has covenants that exclude Black people. I have sold that property. I'm giving it back to the indigenous people whose land I'm found this was built. I'm setting up a scholarship with the rest of the profit for all the Africans and the descendants of their children who can't have access to college. That would be more helpful. Just telling me about your privilege. That didn't help me at all. So I need people who want to be my ally to speak up when you're in the space and and there are no people of color there. Speak up outside the room.
Amen.
Sometimes I'm speaking up for the LGBTQ community. When I look around and say, okay, we don't need to wait for a gay person to be in the room to identify homophobia, right? I'll identify it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're in a room and there are no people of color there, you don't need to wait for me to be there. And you can identify, hey, there are no Black people in this room. What happened?
Mm-hmm.
So anyhow, that's one way that people can be better allies. It's like, speak up. If you're in a space and it does not reflect your community, the county, the city, the nation, then you should be saying, hey, has anyone else noticed that our space really doesn't seem to reflect who we are or who we aspire to be? What should we do about that? What can we do about that?
Right.
You know, go ahead, Tanola. Go ahead.
I'm saying right on. I agree with that. I think the other thing too, though, is ask. I mean, it's one thing to, have, like Charlene was saying, this idea of like, I have privilege. It's another to just ask, how can I assist? But make sure that you're asking rather than telling somebody, I'm going to go do this on your behalf, because that's annoying, right? Listening and asking are really key points of being a responsible and respectful ally at the end of the day, for sure.
So I was going to just piggyback off of both of those ideas, in that, people oftentimes get overwhelmed, like, well, I didn't create this. I don't know what to do about it, so I'm just going to back out. But to be honest with you, structural racism affects every aspect of life. Whether you're in healthcare, whether you are in law, whether you are in education, whether you are in banking, it doesn't matter. Take it upon yourself to find out the experience of people of color within your discipline. And then look at what small part of making that right is something that you can do. What can you do in your circle of influence? If you find out, like the example that Charlene mentioned, that there is a covenant within the land ownership in your area that excludes certain people or has excluded certain people, so that's why you don't have any Black neighbors, what can you do about it? If you are a bank executive and you realize that only 2% of your loans have gone to Black people when 20% of the population in your city is Black, what can you do about it? If I'm a teacher and I realize that only 2% of my African American students go on to take AP classes, what can I do about it? So
Yeah.
you need to look at your world and figure out what part am I playing, either unknowingly, or I'm more than likely it's definitely not willingly. But what part am I playing to continue this pattern? And what can I do to stop it? It's really going to take everybody to put into this situation. This is not something that Black people will be able to fix on our own or should be able to fix on our own. This is a nationwide issue that is upon all of us. If we really want America to be great, then we need to put forth the effort to do so. And I think that instead of feeling overwhelmed, I don't know what to do, start in your own circle of influence. And then you would be amazed at what we all would be able to create if we all just did that little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Danola, you looked like you were about to say something.
No, I was shaking my head and
Okay.
right on. I agree.
Okay. We have another question in the Q&A that says, what are ways that we can support Black women, students, staff, and faculty at the University of Toledo more? Ways that the University of Toledo can support Black students, staff, and faculty more. Anybody want to take it?
I'll start.
Okay.
I would say to allow us to be human. Don't expect that I have some special magical power as a Black woman to be strong all the time, to always be in control of my emotions, to know what I should or should not say that won't offend you or whatever. You know what I mean? We are people, and we right now especially are hurting. There is no way in the world any person of color, especially a Black person, is not hurting right now. So just to acknowledge the fact that, hey, we realize that you are hurting. And yes, we realize that you are human. So sometimes that means that you may not have a good day. Sometimes that means that you may not do what I think you quote unquote should do in a certain situation. Allow us to be human and respect the human nature of us, just like you would someone who is your best friend from your own background. That's what I would like to see. Sometimes, it's exhausting to have to put on an act just to go to work. You have to go to work, but then also I got to be an actress and should probably win an Academy Award because I'm trying to be this person that I am supposed to be. I'm sorry, guys. They asked the question. So, if you would allow me to be me, then maybe I wouldn't be under so much pressure. And maybe I would, be a lot more relaxed in the workplace, or maybe, hopefully, even much more productive if I didn't have to worry about how I was perceived by others. Just my opinion.
Thank you for sharing that opinion.
It reminds me of a novel by Pearl Cleage. She's an African-American writer, and one of my favorite, like the first book that anyone, my friend Barb Neely, who I was telling you about, she told me about this, is Pearl wrote a book called Mad at Miles, and it's all about domestic violence and his relationship with Cicely Tyson, and so she talks about being mad at Miles Davis, and so I have this book and talks about like a lot of, it's a really good book, I like it, but she wrote another book, and there was a quote in there that I've always remembered. She says, "What would a free woman do?" And I often ask myself that when I'm in other spaces, just to remind myself, I'm a free woman, right? Like my ancestors were not, but I am a free woman. And I gotta make sure I'm always claiming my freedom and holding on to my freedom, because it can be encroached upon in all sorts of ways. So sometimes I'll think about something I wanna say or do, and if I find myself hesitating, I say, you know what would a free woman do? Because you are a free woman. So let's be, and so I think about that. And so I was thinking about how this notion of it's like, yeah, I think that's interesting, because I talk about often about how when I show up to work, like I got kids, and they're older now, but when they were younger, I was a single mom. I didn't have the kind of time that some other people did. So I had to be very efficient about like my wardrobe.
Mhm.
And then, but sometimes I think about, my wardrobe also is like to remind me where I am, but so that I don't actually, I guess Monica might take on, so I don't actually relax, right? Because I feel like I'm on hostile territory. I can't forget. I have my uniform that I wear to work. Now, if you see me on a Saturday, Sunday, you won't recognize me. I don't have any Saturday, Sunday clothes. I just like throw on anything. But Monday through Friday, it's like I get up, I put on it's like I know where I'm going. I know that I can't relax the way I think Monica's talking about, but I'm going to think about that because I am a free woman. So
You are.
I am a free woman. What would a free woman do?
yes, ma'am.
Okay, I got it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got about 10 minutes left. And so I think what I will do.
My daughter just brought me these.
What's the address? I guess I can stop at ice cream. I'm on the way.
Anytime I get my joy where I can find it. There you go. Ice cream.
Nice.
Okay, this has been great, and there have been several times where I completely forgot that there was an audience on the call, and I think that's a good thing, because it just was like an extended sister circle. So anyone who identifies as a woman of color who is interested in participating in our sister circle meetings, we do meet on Friday mornings from 9 to 10 a.m. Please email me and I will shoot you the link if you're interested in joining us. So thank you so much for being here this evening. Thank you to my wonderful panelists. I love you, sisters. And
Thank you. Thank
I'm
you.
going to read our power thought, and the idea is that this power thought will see you through the next week of your life. It is safe to look within. As I move through the layers of other people's opinions and beliefs, I see within myself a magnificent being, wise and beautiful. I love what I see in me. God bless you, sisters.
Are we done?